The false victory, the celebration echoed across 17 star systems, from the crystal spires of Zephyr Prime to the floating cities of Nexus 7. The Zephyrian Alliance raised their voices in triumph. 3 years had passed since the last human transmission, 3 years since Earth went silent, and the galaxy finally felt safe again. Admiral Kethver stood on the grand balcony of the Imperial Palace, his forearms spread wide as millions of Zephyrians cheered below. His silver scales gleamed in the triple sunset, and his golden eyes reflected the fireworks that painted the sky in brilliant colors. Behind him, massive screens showed the same images that had been broadcast for weeks. Burning Earth cities, shattered space stations, and the final moments of humanity's resistance. Today marks the end of the human plague, Kethver announced, his voice carried by amplifiers to every corner of the capital. No more will their chaotic nature threaten galactic peace. No more will their unpredictable violence endanger innocent civilizations. The galaxy is finally cleansed. The crowd roared approval. Children waved flags bearing the Zephyrian symbol. Veterans of the human campaign displayed captured Earth weapons and artifacts. In the Imperial Museum, human prisoners sat in transparent cells, the last remnants of a species that had dared to challenge the Alliance's rightful expansion. But in the depths of space, far beyond the celebration lights and cheering crowds, something stirred in the darkness. Ancient systems flickered to life. Massive holes, black as the void between stars, began to hum with barely contained energy. The humans had been silent for 3 years, but they had not been idle. The war had started so simply. Humans had established colonies in the disputed sectors, systems that the Zephyrian Alliance claimed by right of superior civilization. First came the warnings, then the ultimatums, finally the inevitable conflict. The humans fought bravely but hopelessly against the Alliance's vast fleets and advanced technology. Captain Sarah Chen remembered those final days aboard Lunar Base, Earth's last operational command center. The orbital defenses had fallen, the fleet was scattered, and enemy ships darkened Earth's sky like storm clouds. She stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays show one defeat after another. "Ma'am, we're receiving the final evacuation orders from Earth Command," her communications officer reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "All remaining ships are to retreat to the Centauri system." Sarah looked at the screen, showing Earth, her beautiful blue marble now surrounded by Zephyrian warships. Cities burned on the night side while the day side showed massive craters from orbital bombardment. Billions of humans were down there, fighting street by street, building by building, knowing they could not win but refusing to surrender. "Belay that order," Lieutenant Sarah said quietly. "Open a channel to all human vessels and colonies. Full spectrum, maximum power." The young officer hesitated. "Ma'am, that will reveal our position to every enemy ship in the system." "I know." Sarah stepped forward to the main console. Her fingers hovered over the controls that would send what might be humanity's final message to the stars. "Send the following message. This is Captain Sarah Chen, commanding officer of Lunar Base, speaking for what remains of Earth Command. To all human vessels, colonies, and outposts, you are hereby ordered to execute Protocol Nightfall immediately. Repeat. Protocol Nightfall is now active. Maintain radio silence until further notice. Earth remembers her children, and her children will remember Earth." She paused, looking out at the viewport where Earth hung like a wounded giant. "And to our enemies who think this victory marks our end, remember this. Humanity has faced extinction before, We have been conquered, enslaved, and scattered. But we endure, we adapt, we remember. And when the time comes, we always strike back. The transmission ended. Within hours, Lunar Base was nothing but debris. The Zephyrians celebrated. Another victory, another step toward their final triumph. But across the galaxy, in hidden bunkers and secret facilities, humans received Sarah's message and began shutting down their communications. Their cities, their very presence in the galactic community. The silence that followed was total. Human ships moved between the stars. No colonies sent out trade signals. No explorers transmitted discovery reports. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from existence, leaving behind only ruins and the memory of their brief, violent resistance. Dr. Marcus Webb had known this day would come long before the first Zephyrian ultimatum. In the secure laboratories beneath the Titan shipyards, hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Neptune, he and his team had worked in absolute secrecy for over a decade. The project had no official name, no government oversight, no paper trail that could be discovered. Those who knew of it called it simply the insurance policy. The biological component integration is complete, reported Dr. Lisa Park, Webb's chief neural engineer. She gestured to the massive cylindrical chamber in the center of the laboratory, where thousands of processing cores hummed with activity. We've successfully uploaded and merged the consciousness patterns from all volunteer subjects. Webb nodded grimly. The volunteers had been Earth's greatest military minds, heroes who had agreed to have their personalities, memories, and strategic knowledge digitally preserved. They would live on not in human bodies, but as the commanding intelligence of humanity's most powerful weapons. And the ships themselves? Webb asked. All 7 dreadnoughts are complete and operational, replied Commander Alina Vasquez, the project's military liaison. She was one of Earth's most decorated strategists, a woman who had won battles against impossible odds through careful planning and perfect timing. Each vessel is equipped with technology generations ahead of anything in current galactic use. Quantum armor that can resist stellar-level energy outputs, singularity drives that can cross the galaxy in weeks, weapons that can crack planets. Webb walked to the observation window overlooking the construction bays. 7 massive ships floated. In the darkness, each one larger than a city, each one black as night and silent as death. They looked like sleeping giants, waiting for the call to wake and bring judgment to those who had wronged humanity. The neural cores are synchronized and in standby mode, Dr. Park continued. Each dreadnought contains the uploaded consciousness of multiple human commanders, allowing them to make complex tactical decisions independently. They can operate for decades without any external command structure. How long can they remain hidden? Vasquez asked. Webb smiled sadly. Indefinitely. Each ship is equipped with advanced stealth systems and can hibernate in the deep void between star systems. The Zephyrians could search for 1,000 years and never find them. They'll only activate when specific conditions are met. And those conditions are total human communication silence lasting more than 18 months, combined with confirmed hostile occupation of Earth and its colonies. When those criteria are satisfied, the dreadnoughts will automatically begin their mission. Vasquez looked out at the sleeping ships, and that mission is to remind the galaxy why it was a mistake to underestimate humanity. The first sign that something had changed came from the Outer Rim territories, where Zephyrian expansion had been most aggressive. The patrol ship Swift Talon was conducting routine scans of the former, human colony at Kepler 4 for 2b when their sensors detected an anomaly. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, called out sensor operator Vexith, his tentacles dancing over the control interface. Large object, approximately 15 kilometers in length. Configuration unknown. Captain Nor of the Swift Talon frowned. The system had been thoroughly swept after the human surrender. No vessels should remain operational in this region. Can you identify the object? Negative, Captain. It's not matching any known human or Alliance vessel configurations. The hull composition appears to be some kind of adaptive material. It's almost completely absorbing our scanner beams. Distance, 40,000 kilometers and closing. Captain, it's moving fast. Much faster than anything should be able to move in normal space. Captain Nordell felt a chill run down his spine. Raise shields and charge weapons. Send a standard identification request. The reply came not in words, but in action. The unknown vessel accelerated to impossible speed and fired a single beam of coherent energy. The Swift Talon's shields, rated to deflect battleship-class weapons, collapsed. Instantly, the beam cut through the ship's hull like it was made of paper, severing the vessel cleanly in half, as the Swift Talon's crew died in the cold vacuum of space. Emergency beacons automatically transmitted their final sensor readings back to Zephyr Command. The data showed an object unlike anything in their databases, moving with technology that shouldn't exist, and displaying firepower that defied known physics. Within days, 3 more Zephyrian outposts went silent. Each time, the same pattern emerged. A single unknown vessel would appear, deliver devastating firepower with surgical precision, then vanish back into the void. No survivors, no debris large enough to analyze, only the growing fear that something terrible was hunting in the darkness between the stars. Admiral Kethfer stood in the Situation Room aboard the flagship Celestial Might, staring at the tactical display that showed the locations of the attacks. His golden eyes had lost their celebratory gleam, replaced by growing concern. Analysis confirms that all 4 attacks were conducted by the same type of vessel, reported Intelligence Chief Morgan. The energy signatures are consistent, and the tactical approach is identical. Rapid approach, single devastating attack, immediate withdrawal to deep space. Could it be a surviving human vessel? Asked Fleet Admiral Zontor. Impossible, Kethfer replied firmly. We accounted for every human ship. Their largest vessels were destroyed in the initial campaign. They never had the technology to build something of this scale. Then what are we dealing with? Kethfer studied the display, trying to find a pattern in the attacks. All 4 targets had been isolated outposts in former human territory. All had been lightly defended. Whoever was conducting these strikes was testing their capabilities, probing for weaknesses. Double the patrols in all border sectors, he ordered. I want sensor networks at maximum sensitivity. Whatever this is, we're going to find it and destroy it before it becomes a real threat. But deep in the void between the stars, far beyond the range of any Zephyrian sensor, 7 massive shapes continued their patient drift through the darkness. Ancient Earth songs played softly through their corridors. Human faces looked out through their optical sensors. Human voices whispered through their communication systems. The Dreadnoughts were waking up, and they remembered everything. Asterisk the awakening, Furion, the absolute darkness between star systems, where space was so empty that atoms were separated by kilometers. The Dreadnought Terrace Wrath began its awakening sequence. For 3 years, It had drifted silent and cold, its fusion reactors barely flickering, its crew quarters empty and still. But now, deep within its quantum core, something stirred to life. The neural matrix activated first, drawing power from the ship's massive reactors. Thousands of processing nodes came online, simultaneously, each one containing fragments of human consciousness that had been uploaded before Earth's fall. Memories flowed through fiber optic networks like blood through digital veins. The ship began to remember who it was, what it had been built for, and why it existed. Captain James Morrison had been dead for 3 years, killed when his cruiser was destroyed during the Battle of Europa. But his mind lived on in the Terrors. Wrath merged with artificial intelligence systems to create something new, something unprecedented in galactic history. He was no longer simply human, but he was still fundamentally human in the ways that mattered most. Systems report. Morrison's voice echoed through the empty corridors, speaking to sensors and AI subroutines that had become his eyes and ears. All primary systems operational, replied the ship's AI, its voice a synthesis of dozens of human personalities. Quantum armor at full integrity. Singularity drive ready for activation. Weapon systems charging. Neural network integration at optimal levels. Morrison felt the ship around him like a vast extension of his own body. He could sense every rivet in the hull, every circuit in the electronic networks, every weapon in the massive arsenal. The Terror's wrath was more than a ship. It was a living entity, powered by human will and guided by human purpose. Time since last human transmission, he asked. 3 years, 4 months, 16 days. Protocol nightfall conditions have been exceeded. Authorization for independent operations is confirmed. And our siblings, all Dreadnoughts, are reporting ready status. Terrors, Shield, Humanity's Hammer, Solar Vengeance, Starbreaker, Voidwalker, and Final Answer are awaiting coordination signals. Morrison smiled, though he had no physical mouth with which to smile. The expression existed purely in the quantum matrices that housed his consciousness. 7 Dreadnoughts, each one more powerful than entire fleets, each one carrying the uploaded minds of humanity's greatest military leaders. They had been Earth's final gift to the galaxy, a lesson in the consequences of genocide. Signal all units, Morrison commanded. Phase 1 operations are authorized. Time to remind the galaxy that reports of humanity's death were greatly exaggerated. Across the void, massive engines began to ignite. The Dreadnoughts had been sleeping, but now they were awake, and they were very, very angry. The first target was Kepler Station, a massive Zephyrian installation that served as a regional command hub for 3 entire sectors. It housed 50,000 military personnel, orbital defense platforms, and the administrative center for former human territories. Admiral Kethfer had established it as a symbol of Zephyrian dominance, built literally on the ruins of a human colony. Lieutenant Commander Zara Kim had once lived on Kepler Colony before the invasion. She had been visiting Earth when the attacks began, and she had watched from Lunar Base as her home world was bombarded into submission. Now her consciousness resided within the Terror's Wrath's neural network, and she had volunteered to plan the station's destruction. Target analysis complete, she reported to Morrison. Kepler Station maintains a defensive fleet of 37 vessels, plus automated defense platforms and shield generators. Standard approach would require a prolonged engagement. What do you recommend, Lieutenant Commander? We don't use a standard approach. We use the Zephyrians' own confidence against them. They've been celebrating their victory for 3 years. They're not expecting a threat. Morrison considered the tactical data flowing through his consciousness. Kim was right. The Zephyrians had grown complacent in their victory. Their defenses were designed to repel conventional attacks, not to face technology that was decades ahead of anything they could imagine. Proceed with your plan. He authorized that the Terra's Wrath emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, its black hull invisible against the stellar background. For several minutes, it simply observed, mapping the system's defenses and identifying key targets. The station hung in orbit around the colony world like a metallic spider, its sensor arrays sweeping space for threats that would never come from the directions they were watching. This is Terra's Wrath to Kepler. Station Morrison broadcast on all frequencies. His voice carried the authority of Earth's command, the dignity of the dead, and the promise of retribution. You are occupying territory that belongs to the human species. You have precisely 1 hour to evacuate all personnel and surrender control of this system. The response came quickly. Admiral Kethver himself appeared on the communication screen, his golden eyes blazing with arrogance and contempt. Unknown vessel, you will identify yourself immediately and submit to boarding inspection. This system is under the protection of the Zephyrian Alliance, and we do not negotiate with terrorists. I am Captain James Morrison, formerly of the Earth Defense Force. I am speaking to you from the bridge of the Dreadnought, Terra's Wrath. This is not a negotiation, Admiral. This is a notice of eviction. Kethver laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. Captain, I don't know what kind of retrofitted cargo hauler you're commanding, but you are facing the combined might of the Zephyrian 7th Fleet. Stand down now, and you may live long enough to be executed properly. Admiral Morrison replied calmly, I want you to remember this moment. Remember your confidence. Remember your certainty. Remember how safe you felt. Because in exactly 57 minutes, when your station is debris and your fleet is scrap metal, I want you to understand that this is what happens when you underestimate humanity. The connection terminated. Aboard Kepler station, alarms began blaring as the defense fleet moved to intercept the unknown vessel. 37 Zephyrian warships, each one a masterpiece of Alliance technology, accelerated toward the solitary black ship that dared to threaten their stronghold. Target the unknown vessel, ordered Admiral Kethver. All ships, maximum firepower. I want it vaporized. The fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, particle beams that could punch through battleship, armor, missiles that could level cities. For a moment, space around the Terra's Wrath became a storm of energy and destruction. When the light faded, the Dreadnought hung unchanged in the void, its quantum armor absorbing and redirecting the entire fleet's firepower without even flickering. The Zephyrian ships stared in shock at their enemy, their most powerful weapons completely ineffective. Demonstration complete, Morrison announced. Now let me show you what real firepower looks like. The Terra's Wrath fired once. A single beam of focused gravitational energy lanced out from the Dreadnought's primary weapon. A lance of controlled space-time distortion that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. The beam struck the Alliance flagship Celestial Might amidships and simply erased it from existence, leaving not even debris behind. Impossible, whispered Admiral Kethver, staring at the empty space where his most powerful ship had been just seconds before. The Dreadnought fired again, and another Alliance vessel vanished. Then again and again. Each shot was precisely aimed, instantly lethal, and completely irresistible. In less than 5 minutes, 37 of the galaxy's most advanced warships were reduced to expanding clouds of ionized particles. "This is impossible," Kethver screamed into his communicator. "No species possesses this level of technology. Where did you get these weapons?" "We built them," Morrison replied calmly. "While you were celebrating your victory, while you were dividing up our colonies and enslaving our people, we were working, we were preparing. Did you really think a species capable of splitting atoms and crossing interstellar space would simply give up and die quietly?" The Terra's wrath moved toward Kepler Station, its massive bulk blotting out stars as it approached. The station's defense platforms opened fire, their weapons as ineffective as the fleet's had been. The Dreadnought's point defense systems casually swatted aside incoming missiles, while its main guns began targeting the station's critical systems. "Wait," Kethver transmitted desperately. "We surrender. We'll evacuate the system. There's no need for more bloodshed." "There was no need for any bloodshed," Morrison replied. "You chose to attack peaceful human colonies. You chose to bomb our cities from orbit. You chose to hunt down our survivors and put them in cages. Every death in this system is on your conscience, Admiral." The Terra's wrath fired on the station's reactor core. The explosion that followed could be seen from the planet's surface, a new star that burned briefly in the night sky before fading to nothing. Kepler Station, symbol of Zephyrian dominance, was gone. But this was only the beginning. Across former human space, 6 other dreadnoughts were moving to their assigned targets. Each one carried the memories of human colonies that had been destroyed, human families that had been killed, human dreams that had been snuffed out. They moved with the precision of machines and the fury of the righteous dead. The humanity's hammer struck the mining complex at Rigel 7, where human prisoners had been worked to death extracting rare minerals for the Alliance war machine. The solar vengeance demolished the research facility at Wolf 359, where Zephyrian scientists had been dissecting human technology and human bodies with equal enthusiasm. The Starbreaker targeted the propaganda center at Vega Station, where Alliance media had broadcast celebration, footage of Earth's destruction to every corner of the galaxy. Each attack followed the same pattern. A single demand for surrender, a contemptuous refusal, overwhelming demonstration of superior firepower, complete destruction of the target, and always the same message transmitted on all frequencies. "This is the human species speaking from beyond the grave. You declared us extinct, but we have merely been sleeping. You celebrated our destruction, but we have been preparing our response. For every human colony you destroyed, we will destroy 10 of yours. For every human life you took, we will demand 100 in return. You wanted to erase us from the galaxy. Instead, you have ensured that we will be remembered forever." The panic spread through Alliance space like wildfire. Reports of the attacks reached every major world within hours. Carried by fleeing survivors and automated distress beacons, the mighty Zephyrian Alliance, which had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and ruthless efficiency, suddenly found itself under attack by an enemy that possessed weapons beyond their comprehension. Emergency sessions were called fleets, were recalled, defense systems were activated, but deep down, every Alliance leader knew the truth. They had awakened something that they could not defeat, something that they should never have provoked. The humans had been content to live in peace among the stars, but the Alliance had demanded war. Now they had it, and they were losing. Admiral Kethver stood in the ruins of his command center aboard a damaged cruiser, the sole survivor of Kepler Station's destruction. His golden eyes had lost their arrogance. replaced by something that had been foreign to his species for generations. Fear dot around him. His officers worked frantically to coordinate the Alliance's response to the human attacks. But what response was possible? Their enemies possessed technology that made Alliance weapons look like primitive clubs. Their ships were invulnerable to conventional attack. Their tactics were flawless, their intelligence perfect, their resolve absolutely implacable. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessels. All 7 ships are broadcasting simultaneously." "Put it through," Kethfer ordered. The holographic display activated, showing not the familiar image of Captain Morrison, but a collection of human faces. Men and women of different ages and backgrounds, all of them looking directly at the camera, with expressions of cold determination. These were the uploaded consciousnesses that commanded the Dreadnought fleet. The digital ghosts of humanity's greatest military minds. "People of the Zephyrian Alliance," spoke a woman with steel-grey hair and scars across her face. "I am Commander Alina Vasquez, Strategic Coordinator for the human Dreadnought fleet. 3 years ago, you declared victory over our species. You celebrated our extinction. You divided our territory among yourselves and displayed our survivors. As trophies, you made a fundamental error in judgment." A younger man stepped forward, his uniform bearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. "I am Lieutenant Commander David Park, formerly of the battleship Indomitable. My ship was destroyed defending the Mars colonies. My crew died fighting your invasion. We were willing to make peace. We offered to share the galaxy with you. You chose genocide instead." More faces appeared, each one telling the same story. Destroyed ships, murdered colonies, fallen heroes who lived on only in digital form. They spoke with the voices of the dead, carrying the authority of those who had already paid the ultimate price for their convictions. "Your alliance made this war," Vasquez continued. "You set the rules of engagement when you began targeting civilian populations. You established the precedent when you refused to accept human surrender. Now those same rules apply to you. This is not revenge. This is justice. The human species is offering the Zephyrian Alliance one opportunity for peace," added Captain Morrison. "Complete withdrawal from all former human territories. Release of all human prisoners. Reparations for the destroyed colonies. Public acknowledgement of war crimes committed against humanity. These terms are not negotiable, and if we refuse..." Kethfer found himself asking. The human officers exchanged glances before Morrison answered. "Then we will continue our mission. 7 dreadnoughts, Admiral. 7 ships, each one more powerful than your entire fleet. We can remain operational for decades without resupply or reinforcement. We know the location of every Alliance world, every military installation, every civilian population center. We are patient and we are thorough, and we do not forget." The transmission paused, letting the implications sink in. Then Vasquez spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Admiral Kasfar, you once told your people that the galaxy was finally cleansed of the human plague. You were wrong. We are still here, and we are no longer interested in coexistence. You wanted to erase us from history. Instead, you have ensured that we will be the last thing your species ever sees." The transmission ended, leaving Kethfer alone with the ruins of his pride and the consequences of his choices. Outside the viewport, stars that had once seemed friendly now appeared hostile, each one potentially hiding another dreadnought, another reminder of humanity's refusal to die quietly. The war was far from over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Zephyrian Alliance had believed that superior numbers and advanced technology guaranteed victory. They had learned too late that humanity's greatest weapon was not their ships or their guns, but their refusal to ever give up in the depths of space. 7 dreadnoughts continued their mission, carrying the memories of a dead world and the promise that some victories are too costly to celebrate. The galaxy would remember this lesson for a very long time.